Creative insurgents. Creative insurgents.
Hey everybody, this is Corey Huff from theabundantartist.com.
And Melissa Dinwiddie from Living a Creative Life.
And this is the Creative Insurgents podcast,
where we are all about living a creative life according to your own rules.
So Melissa, what's going on?
Well, I'm pretty excited, Corey, because today a customer is coming to pick up these two paintings. I don't know if you can see them back there.
Mm-hmm.
That one was a commission. It was a diptych. Two paintings. One was a commission, and one. Well, she saw my painting in progress on Facebook and wanted to buy it and wanted a sister painting to go along with it. So she's picking it up today, and I varnished these paintings the other day, and it made me realize that I probably should talk about something pretty important for anybody who's painting with acrylics or working with acrylics. I started working on canvas so I wouldn't have to frame my work, right? Oh, I don't have to frame it, don't have to put it under glass. But what most acrylic painters don't realize is that acrylics are porous. And if you don't varnish them, they absorb dust permanently. You cannot clean the dust out because it gets in there microscopically. So you can find lots of videos on YouTube that say, oh, no problem, just use this acrylic gloss medium and varnish. No, this is not actually a varnish. It's non-toxic, but you can't actually have a gloss medium that's also a varnish. This is porous, just like your acrylic paints. So in order to really protect your acrylics, you need to use, unfortunately, something toxic, something like this spray varnish or a liquid varnish. I use a lot of water-soluble materials, so I need to use the spray. But the spray is toxic. So, dun 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 dun, I now have a respirator. They're awesome. They're not very expensive, and I have goggles, safety goggles, and also important, nitrile gloves, which do not absorb solvents. So this stuff will kill you or damage your liver or whatever if you don't protect yourself. So this is the way to protect yourself, and you can find great videos on YouTube for how to properly spray varnish your paintings.
So Melissa, tell us about today's guest.
Well, I am super excited to have our special guest today, Claudine Helmuth. Actually, Claudine, you have to tell me how to correctly pronounce your name.
No, that's correct. We say it Hellmuth. It's Americanized now.
Okay, awesome. Well, Claudine is an artist and illustrator. She combines drawings with happy patterns to create retro, whimsical artworks that she licenses to the craft, home, and gift markets. And she's been doing illustration full-time for 12 years. So she's got creds here. And Claudine has done illustration projects for major companies like Smart Car, Capitol Records, and for publications like the Saturday Evening Post, and she's been featured in the New York Times, she's been on the Martha Stewart Show, HGTV, the DIY Network, and HSN, so she's been getting out there. She also has some really cool stuff going on. She's got an exclusive paper crafting line created for and with the Home Shopping Network, which I'd love to hear more about. She's got a product line of paints and mediums and canvas, and she's written 3 books and produced 3 DVDs focused on the art and collage techniques that she teaches in workshops, so she's also a teacher. So welcome, Claudine. So great to have you here.
Yay, I'm really excited to be here.
Well, I read on your website that you went to art school. And you graduated from the Corcoran College of Art and Design in 1997. And I also read on your website that you've been working full-time since 2001. So there's a 4-year gap there from graduating in 97 to being a full-time artist 4 years later. And I would love it if you could tell us how you made that leap, how you got from graduating from art school to becoming a full-time artist.
These are the goods.
Yes. These are the goods.
Yes, this is the story. Well, what happened was I graduated in 1997, and I'd actually never even used a computer before, ever, until 1997. So these were early computer days, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I ended up taking that summer a class at George Washington University that was all about CD-ROM design, but then they had like 2 days of it where it was about HTML and building your own website. So just from that little bit of knowledge, and then with HTML for Dummies book and Intro to Photoshop book, I somehow got myself a job in Orlando at a web design company. And these were, I mean, nobody knew what they were doing, so everybody was figuring it out. It was 1997, early internet days. That was back when people would ask to have music on their websites, and it would be like a MIDI file. So it would be like, doo-doo-doo, you know. And then they'd be really excited that you know, was part of it. So we were all hand typing HTML and stuff. But if I could learn to do it, I mean, anybody could learn to do it. That was the way I looked at it. So I started just doing that, and meanwhile building my business as my art business on the side. I actually started licensing my work in 1998. So my art career kind of kept going from college, but there was a period in there where I needed money from a day job. And so I worked for this small little company and then got laid off from there. And then for a couple more years until after the 2000 combust, I worked for Cox Interactive, which now doesn't exist, but it was part of Cox Cable network. So we were part of their news and media partners. There was a whole interactive side. So I was part of that as that was growing really big, and then also part of that as it shrunk really small as they started laying more and more people off, and then there was just me and 4 other people in the Orlando office, and by that time I had built up my art business so big that I didn't know how I was going to be able to do both. I had started teaching workshops, and I was heavily into licensing. And so I was actually hoping I would get laid off when the next round of layoffs came, because I didn't want to have to make that decision myself that to quit my job, because that would be really scary. So I got my wish and I got laid off, and it was still really scary. I mean, and every year, every December and January, I panic, like, how am I going to make enough money for this year? Will I be able to do it again? I mean, it's like 13 years, every single year. It's never changed where I'm like, oh, I'm totally got this in the bag. I'm going to totally make enough money. So I guess that part never goes away. It just is always the same. But yeah, but I was able to transition over, and I've been full-time for myself. The bulk of my income for many years has come from traveling and teaching the workshops.
Cool. Well, I'm so glad that you mentioned that in December and January every year you panic, because I think it's so important for other artists to hear this, not to dishearten them, right? But to let them know that continuing to have to work hard doesn't mean there's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Well, and we live in evolving businesses. My business has had many iterations throughout the year. Things have, either by my choice or not by my choice, certain things have fallen away. So it's always changing. You're always adapting. So one year from the next, I don't really know. I have a general idea. Well, if I'm doing this, this, and this, I'll probably make this much money. But there's still that big question mark there. But it always, knocking on wood, it always seems to work out. So, once I get into second quarter, I start to feel better. I could see, where the money's coming from. But like the beginning of first quarter each year, when my accounting software says like $0 for that year, I get so freaked out.
Well, I know, like, for what my main source of income for so long used to be my Ketubah business, which is still a significant source of income for me, and it's so seasonal. So
because it's weddings.
Because it's weddings. So November, December, January is so dead, and I used to go into a panic until like every year until I got it into my head. Oh yeah, seasonal. It's probably going to pick up, but you still never know.
No, you don't. I think it's a good idea to make notes if you have a diary or your sketchbook or even in Google Calendar, wherever, when you have the slow periods, because every single business is cyclical. Like the internet seems dead in August. Nobody's around, and you'll start
Everybody's
to
on
panic.
vacation, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And there's certain periods of time, so then you can kind of refer back and remind yourself, oh, yeah, this is just part of the cycle.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I know you work on so many different types of projects. You teach a lot. You do illustration, licensing, your books, your DVDs, and you talk on your website about how much you love having that variety, which I totally get, being a passion pluralite myself. And then also there's the advantage when you have a variety of income sources like that, you don't have all your eggs in one basket. It can be really, really great to have multiple streams of income. And I know we were just talking offline before we started the recording that your licensing has really shifted lately and things have changed around. So would you be willing to share with our audience where the different places, like approximate percentage of income, where it's coming from, distributed among your teaching and your illustration and your licensing and the various different things?
Oh, yeah. Well, until the last year, the bulk of my income came from teaching workshops, and then there was the licensing. Now, licensing for some people, like I know you guys have had Kelly Ray on here, she's done very, very well with licensing, and there's many artists that make great income with licensing, so don't listen to me. But I mean, I've been in licensing since 1998, so I've seen it go through all kinds of different transitions. Like it used to be where your product would be out on the shelf for multiple sales cycles, and now you're out for just one sales cycle, so that's maybe 3 months you'll have. So there's a lot of design and all this stuff into it. So without getting into a big licensing discussion, licensing for me, I usually feel like Jerry Seinfeld, and I'm signing like many, many $2 checks, and am I getting the hand cramp? But then the good thing about licensing is I look at it as it's a resume builder. It's nice to have the product. Sometimes you do make a little bit of extra cash, but for me, it's never been something I can rely on for my income. And the books are kind of similar to that, where you make a royalty off of your books, but it's spread out over many, many, many years if you're lucky enough to have your book out there that long. So that is also little. So there's all these like little areas of money. So the thing about the teaching of the workshops is I can go and I can teach a workshop and I can make a decent amount of money that I can rely on because I can figure out how many students are going to be in that workshop and that kind of thing. Now, that being said, after 12 years of traveling and teaching workshops, I've decided to stop teaching workshops live. I'm teaching online now because I just can't take the travel anymore. It's just been too much. It's not good for my marriage. It's not good for making friends. It's not good for any kind of stability in your life to be constantly on the road traveling. But for a long time, I mean, it was definitely my main source of income. And many artists have found teaching workshops to be a great way to earn income. And if you are an extroverted personality, which I am not, I'm an introvert. So for me, I found it very draining. And I would enjoy being like, I don't want my students to get the wrong idea. Like I wasn't rolling my eyes and wishing I could be gone, but I enjoyed being with them. But then I would need like a week or to recover, but sometimes by the time I recovered, I was already on a plane to teach the next workshop. So for me, it just wasn't sustainable for any more than a decade of doing it.
It's a long time.
Yes, and that has really been scary for me and my business, because that's the biggest transition for me, is not traveling and teaching the workshops. It's always been my go-to area. So I've been trying to build up other areas of my business, like my Etsy shop and other yay Etsy, and other areas of passive income as well. And I totally agree with you guys that having multiple streams of income is important, because when you're working with multiple different partners in things like licensing, or like how I had the product line with Ranger, they decided to discontinue the product line this year. So, and then same with HSN, that was for 2 years, and then that's done. And so if I didn't have other things going on, then that could be completely devastating to my business, to just be relying on those elements. And maybe just because I've been reading a lot of James Altucher, I have decided to really bring everything back to myself and what I can build for myself, instead of relying so much on other companies, because it was really sad for me to have my product line end that I had worked on, and I had worked to build with their chemist and design, and and they have their reasons. There's financial reasons. There's all kinds of reasons that I do not take personally that go into it. But if I have more things in my business that I get to decide, ooh, am I going to make this, or am I going to design that, or let's see if people like this thing, then I feel like I'm taking back some control for myself. I feel like over the years, because I did so many licensing partnerships and so many partnerships with different manufacturers, that I almost gave too many little pieces of myself away, and all of these other businesses were deciding if and when I got to make money, if it fit into their business plan for that year.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. I know that a lot of our listeners, Claudine, are going to wonder, okay, you're making this transition and you're changing the way your business works, but how did you build up these multiple streams of income in the first place, right? Like you said, you were an illustrator, and then you taught classes, and then you started doing licensing, and a lot of artists struggled to just get one steady stream of income. So how did you manage to build those different things?
That's a great question. Well, this happened over many years. So I started licensing in 1998. I got my first artist rep in 2000. So I was doing licensing just a little bit at a time while I was still having a day job. And then while I still had a day job, I started teaching workshops. And that was just because somebody asked me to, and I had never even thought of it as a way to teach. And so I taught first at a place in Georgia, and then my second place I taught at was this retreat called Art Fest, which was in Port Townsend, Washington, and it was an amazing retreat that went on for many, many years. So then I added workshops to the mix. So I had licensing, day job, and then workshops, and then towards the end of my day job, before I got laid off, through teaching these workshops, everybody kept saying, you need to write a book. These are great techniques. And so I started putting a book proposal together. And then right about the month before I got laid off, I got my book proposal accepted by F&W Publications. So then you add books to the mix, and then I wrote books, and then maybe a year or two later, I think, well, maybe it'd be kind of good to do DVDs of this. So I approached different DVD companies. So then we add DVDs to the mix. So it wasn't like all at once, and there definitely was no plan. It's just, there's never a plan. I can only see so far out, and then the rest has to kind of be revealed as you're in it. So I just kind of think, well, what is the next natural progression from doing this? So for one artist, it might be traveling and doing outdoor shows might be their first step. And then from that, they maybe meet a company that would like to license their work. So then they license some of their work. So then they're traveling and doing shows and licensing their work. And then maybe they decide to sell downloads from, Etsy or something like that. So then you add that to the mix.
So how do you, so how do you avoid, like you've done so many things, how did you avoid the trap of doing too many things and it damaging your business? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about because sometimes I would feel really crazy, but it's weird because everything has its own season. So like the licensing would be kind of, and I've never been licensing where that was so busy that I couldn't do anything else, maybe except for the time that I was designing product for HSN. That was the year I actually could barely do any other work, and I had to narrow my focus and just work on that but I had no idea how time-consuming that was going to be when I got into it. So I think there is no way to really, really protect yourself against it. You just have to, if you're doing something and it's getting too overwhelming or it's taking over other parts of your business that you feel are more valuable, then maybe you're going to have to let that one go or hire help or something like that. So it's all really a figuring out process of what works best for you. But all of my things have always happened in different areas. Like I'll take a break for doing maybe licensing, let's say, and I'll work on building an online class for a month. So, and then when I'm done with the online class, I'm back at maybe designing some fabric or something like that. So but there are those times where things overlap and you just think you're going to lose your mind. And I think that sometimes you can't have too many multiple streams. Like you need to pick maybe 4 or 3 or whatever works for you, and not make you crazy at the same time. I think you have like the bread winning stream, and then you have like these little subset ones that can get ignored every once in a while. And that's sort of what's worked for me. So the one that takes up the main part of my time, and then the other ones that kind of shift around.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving us that insight. I really like the fact that you take action. I mean, you're obviously somebody that takes action all the time, and also the doing things before you know exactly what is going to be required, like acting before you're ready.
Yeah.
That's a trap that a lot of business owners fall into, is trying to figure everything out before they actually take action.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't figure everything out because there's too many known unknowns and all that stuff. Like you have to just get in it, and you don't even know if you're going to like it until you start doing something. A lot of people try out licensing and realize that they don't like it, or try out illustration. Or I did custom artwork for quite a few years for people, and I enjoyed it, but it also was so time consuming, and the amount that I could charge that people were willing to pay, I could not get that to match up with the time involved. So I had to let that go, and I think not being afraid to pivot in your business, I think, is important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was actually one of the things I was going to ask you, Claudine, because I knew that you had previously done those commissions, and I was suspecting that might be why you had moved away from that. So I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, and I did it for a number of years. I think it was 4 years, maybe even 5 years, and it was just one of those things that yeah, I mean, there's sometimes in your business, there's something that is working great, and I could make it bigger. I could have gone all out and figured something else out, but it was just time to let that go. I felt like it had run its natural course.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point for people to remember, that just because you take something on doesn't mean that that's something you have to do forever. That things do have natural courses, and it may be that it's run its course, it's time to put it aside. You can always bring it back later in a different form or charge more or whatever, but you don't have to commit to something forever, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and it's just maybe because I listen to a lot of business podcasts and stuff, and they're always talking about pivoting and changing your business. And I think that I think it is important to know that just because you let something go for a little while, it doesn't have to be forever. But if it's something that's draining the other more financially stable parts of your business, then it is a wise idea to kind of let that go.
So your teaching was your main income source for a long time, and now you're pivoting, right? So how do you foresee things moving forward? Like where do you see that main energy going moving forward?
Well, right now I'm working on my printable downloads that I have in my Etsy shop. So I have things like this little oven, which is a cupcake box, and you open it up, and then there's like a little cupcake tray inside, and this has been my most popular item. And it was funny because just like all those things, it's never the thing that you think it's going to be. It's always
Right.
the one that you just go, oh, that would be a fun idea. And so what happened was in 2012, I worked on these various licensing contracts for a couple of pretty big companies, and I worked on the building and designing the product for well over a year, and then before the product even made to market, they dropped the line. So yes, and you know, and even though I've been doing licensing for a while, I never had that happen, and then twice to have it happen. And I had basically been doing what we were talking about earlier. I had been, you know, working weekends and nights and everything to get the stuff done for these companies while I was trying to also make work that was making me money at the same time, because I wasn't making any money because we were building the product line. And so I was really depressed for a few months and just did not even know what to do. And then I was meeting with a friend that I meet with once a week, and we talk about business stuff, and she was doing some digital download things. And I thought, you know, it would be kind of neat if I took those. I had made some designs. One of the companies was a folk art company, and I made these little houses. And they were going to be all pre-made in China and everything like that. But I thought, what if I could take them and flatten them out, and it could be where people cut them out and put them together and make cute little arrangements. And I had this Etsy store kind of growing cobwebs. It didn't have anything in it. And I thought, well, I'll just put them up in my Etsy shop and see how they do. And so I put them together, and I had a lot of fun. I came up with some other kits to go with it. This was for Halloween. And since I got this idea in September, I had to hurry, kind of get stuff together. And I put them up there, and they did really well. And so then I did a round of Christmas kits, and then I did like a ice cream truck, and then I did the oven, and then a food blogger got a hold of the oven and blogged it, and it was crazy. It went viral on Pinterest, and my shop was like selling these ovens left and right. It was amazing. And so I thought, you know what, this is really great. This is something I can work on myself when I want to. It's passive. It's semi-passive. I mean, there's definitely the active stage where you're building. There's a lot of design and work that goes into the actual kit, but once
that's
it's
the myth
up
of
there,
passive income, right? Like
yeah. Yeah, but once it's up there, it's passive. You know, once I've done all the design and the videos and all that, then it is passive. But so I'm actually focusing a lot of my attention on that now, and just building out the design. I'm learning the software. There are cutting machines that people have that are about the size of a printer, and you can make special files for them so that then the cutting machine will actually cut out the thing. So I've been filling my brain with all of this. I can feel like my head growing because it's learning all this stuff. And so it's like, it hurts in there. And learning all this software and things so that I can offer those files to, there's a whole other market of people that use these cutting machines. But then there would also be the ones for the scissor people too. But yeah, so I'm really spending a lot of my time, and it really feeds into, I had forgotten how much I enjoyed doing packaging design. And I first went to the Columbus College of Art and Design before I finished at the Corcoran. And they had a really strong foundations program where you covered like design and illustration and all of that. And they had a big industrial design program like for packaging and stuff. And while I did not take that program, I always loved figuring out how the packaging worked. And I'm the kind of person, I will buy something just because the packaging is cute.
My wife does that. I'm like, why did you buy this? And she's like, the packaging was cute.
Yes.
All the time.
Yes, it could have. I think at Trader Joe's I got these like terrible tasting peppermint sticks, but they had the cutest tin. And so I was like, well, I have to buy these. I don't care. And so it kind of plays into that. And it's just funny how things, I think, in your life and art career are cyclical. Like they go around. And you're like, oh, yeah, I remember. Like then I started to remember when I was a little kid and I would make paper dolls with my neighbor friend. And when I was like 6 or 7, I had my own craft club where I would figure out what the project was going to be, and then I made invitations and my little friends would come over and I would direct them through this project and they would make a thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like kind of like what I ended up doing as a workshop.
That's so awesome. Well, Claudine, gosh, I feel like I could keep asking you questions for hours, but we're running out of time. But I just wanted to say one thing I especially appreciate about getting to talk to you is hearing how you really approach your art from a business person's standpoint. You really think about the business side of things, and that is really the key for anybody who wants to make a living from whatever their creative pursuit is to be business-minded about it.
I completely agree. And I have a sort of a dual personality where I really love the business side of it, and I think if artists just really start to look at it, I think a lot of artists are like, oh, business is boring, but you have to remember it's all about you and your business, and you're making, like, I think it's fun when it's like all related to me and how I can make money and my work and my art, just like the same way I didn't like designing other people's websites, but I have a lot of fun when it's me and mine, you know, so if you think about it that way, and it's really just experimenting. It's like you cannot figure it out. You have to just try it, see if it catches on, see if your customer base likes it, and a lot of times your customers will tell you what they want from you. And so just listening to feedback that you get, and not to say like you completely push aside your artistic integrity, but if it's something that you hear and there's a little nugget in it where you're like, ooh, I kind of like that idea, then take that and run with it and see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, if your fans tell you, gosh, I really love this thing that you did, and you think, yeah, I really love that too,
yeah,
then duh.
That's not selling out. Yeah,
no brainer.
Exactly. Or if you have something that's really a hit, think of how you can kind of do a little twist on it to bring that back to your audience. I mean, if you're doing paintings and there's a theme that people like, let's say chairs or something, well then think about how you can keep going with that theme for a little while. And obviously when you get sick of it, then that's time to stop doing it. And I've done that many times. I've changed my art style. So I'm definitely not for doing stuff to the point of hating the work, but it's great to take that feedback and see if you can incorporate it into your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Claudine, what a treat it has been to talk to you and get a little peek inside your creative business. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks everybody. It's been fun.
Don't forget to subscribe over at creativeinsurgents.com, and you can get one of our free secret handbooks for creative insurgents. Bye.
Bye.